start like really talking. There it goes. All right. Good morning and welcome back to Storytime with Mrs. Walker. Today we are going to be continuing our book, Soccer on Sunday. Soccer on Sunday. We will pick up where we left off on Wednesday. We're starting on chapter 6. At this point, Jack and Annie have made it to Mexico City in 1970. They have made friends with Roberto, who helped them find their way to the stadium. And the first half has taken place, and Jack and Annie are decided to switch out seats with Roberto because their seats were really good, but his weren't as good. And they felt like since he had helped them find their way, that the least they could do was to be nice and share seats with him. So they're supposed to be switching out. So the first half has just ended, and we're on chapter 6. Annie. Annie? Roberto? Jack raced down the stadium stairs, trying to get ahead of the crowd. By the time he reached the middle section, he had to slow down. The aisle was packed with people buying sodas and flags and soccer caps from vendors. Jack couldn't get past the human traffic jam. He kept looking at his watch and waited for the steps to clear. It was almost 5 minutes, and he squeezed through the gap in the crowd. 20 A26, A26, he repeated as he struggled to get down to the sections near the playing field. Finally, Jack reached the last rows in sections A. Annie? Roberto, he whispered. He looked down the steep rows of seats. All the wide brimmed hats made it impossible to see. Annie! Roberto! Jack yelled. Annie! Roberto! But there was no sign of them anywhere. Jack hadn't been around. Jack hadn't expected all the hats or all the people milling around, standing, stretching, talking to neighbors, coming and going. Jack looked at his watch again. There was 5 minutes left to the end of the halftime. The stadium officials were yelling for everyone to return to their seats. Take your seats! Halftime's almost over. Take your seats! Jack didn't know what to do. Suddenly he was caught in another traffic snarl as people started climbing back up to higher tiers. Keep moving, the usher shouted at everyone. Keep moving. A huge roar came from the crowd. The players were taking their positions again. Kickoff. It was the second half of the game was about to begin. The Brazilian and Italian soccer stars were running in all directions, even peering through the crowd. Jack loved watching them up close. Suddenly, the usher was by his side. Where's your ticket? The man asked. Now's my chance, Jack thought. He showed his ticket. Please, I'm looking for A26, my sister. A26, but that's not your seat. Your seat's at the top. Please go there now. But there's no time, barked the frazzled man. The game has started. Go back to your seat. Jack did as the official said. Annie won't know why I didn't show up, he thought as he climbed the stairs. She'll be really worried. He kept peering back down at the first rows of section A, looking for Annie and Roberto. Finally, Jack arrived at the top of the stadium. He felt frustrated and anxious as he sat back down in his seat. Not only would he never get a good look at the World Cup players now, but how was he going to find Annie again? Jack wished he had a cell phone, but he knew cell phones hadn't invented yet. How did people find each other in 1970, he wondered. As the fans of the Brazilian teams kept whispering and cheering, Jack caught more snatches of the radio comment. Brazil attacks. Garrison scores. Long, low shot. Brazil keeps attacking, passing, dribbling. Jack barely listened to the game anymore. He was too worried about what to do when it was over. If the stadium was this hectic at halftime, it'll be insane when the championship game ended, he thought. He had Merlin's mist in his backpack. Should he use it now, he wondered? What great talent would help him find Annie? What great talent would help them accomplish their mission? Pelé follows with a hard shot, the radio commentator's voice crackled. Here comes Alberto. As the game went on, Jack couldn't stop worrying about finding Annie. She must be worried about finding me too, he thought. Knowing her, she would have tried to get help from the usher or the stadium guards. Maybe she talked to the police. Jack looked up and down the aisles for any officials who might be searching for him. 4 minutes left, the announcer yelled. Testudo's got the ball, the teenager with the binoculars yelled. Someone passes to Pelé. Now to Gerozano. Has it. Brazil drives the ball and scores. As soon as it was over, I have to find seat A26, Jack thought. I'll keep looking as long as I have to. He just hoped Annie would wait at her seat. He hoped he had discovered the secret of greatness during the game. He hoped Roberto would stick around and help take them back to the embassy. Jack's thoughts were interrupted by a huge roar from the crowd. Final score 4-1. The beautiful team has won. Championships of the world. Best World Cup of all time. All the spectators around Jack were screaming and jumping up and down and hugging each other. Here's a picture of the excitement at the end of the game. But Jack doesn't look so excited, does he? Jack squeezed past the people in his row. The sportscaster shouted from the radio. Spectators are pushing past the police and the news reporter. Mobs are rushing onto the field. They're tearing off the players' shirts, shoes. The fans have gone wild. Jack hoped that Annie didn't get impatient in all the chaos and leave her seat to look for him. They'd never find each other if they were both moving around. Pelé's team members have hoisted them onto his shoulders. Celebrations will go on for days. The players will be honored at the giant banquet tonight in Mexico City. Excuse me, Jack mumbled as he tried to push past people in his row. He made his way through the crowd of celebrating fans and started down the steep steps. He was bumped and pushed by people spilling from the stands. He moved as quickly as he could so he wouldn't get trampled. Finally, Jack reached the lower sections of seats. He looked around. He was accidentally knocked over by rowdy teenagers dancing in the aisle, screaming and waving flags. He scrambled back to his feet and jumped onto the bench. He finally saw them, Annie and Roberto. They were only a few rows in front of them. They too were standing on a bench. They were facing the field, pumping their arms in the air and cheering loudly. Jack was flooded with relief. But then he felt angry. What the heck, he thought. Annie wasn't searching for him at all. Shouldn't she have been the least bit worried? She looked like she was having a great time. Annie, Jack yelled, and he hurried down to him. Annie and Roberto saw Jack and they waved happily. Oh, Jack, I'm so glad to see you. We waited for you. But when you didn't come back, we figured your seat must be okay. I hope it was. Well, actually, thanks so much for letting me keep my seat the whole game, Annie shouted. Roberto and I had the best time. The game was incredible. Yes, Jack, said Roberto. I had a wonderful time of my whole life. I was worried about you. I hope your seat in the sky was good. Jack took a deep breath. And for the second time today, he chose to do the right thing. Yeah, sure, my seat was great, he said. It was fine, totally fine. Chapter 7. Bye, Pelé. I'm so glad, shouted Annie. Come, squeeze in here with us to watch. Everyone has gone crazy. Jack climbed onto the bench and stood between Jack and Roberto as they watched the happy celebration on the field. The president of Mexico presented the giant trophy to Brazil, and Carlos Alberto. Let me start that again. The president of Mexico presented the giant trophy to Brazil, and Carlos Alberto, the captain of the team, he lifted it high above his head. Yay, Brazil, shouted Roberto. Yay, Pelé. Did the ring of truth ever glow? Jack asked Annie when you were watching Pelé up close. Did you get the secret of greatness from him? Not yet. Yay, Pelé. Not yet. Then when? Don't worry, we still have time. She pulled the ring off her finger. Here, you can wear it. He slipped the ring back onto finger. But what's the use, he thought. We lost our big chance. How will we ever get close to Pelé now? Followed by hundreds of photographers and TV cameras, the beautiful team was marching around the field. Confetti and streamers floated down from the stands. Firecrackers were whistling and popping in the stadium. Flag bearers waved huge green and yellow Brazilian flags. A band was playing. Annie and Roberto clapped to the rhythm of the music, trying to hide both his worry and his disappointment. Jack clapped with them. They're leaving now, said Roberto. The police were leading Pelé and the other Brazilian players off the crazy crowded field. TV cameras, reporter, and the mob of fans followed the World Cup champions. We should follow the team too, Annie said to Jack. Want to? We have to. We still have to accomplish our mission, remember? Come with us, Roberto, Annie said. Let's all follow the team pronto. They climbed down the bench and started running across the huge soccer field. The parade of fans and players was leaving the furthest exit. We'll catch up to them outside the stadium, said Roberto, running along with Jack and Annie. If I could ever even get 20 feet from Pelé, I would be happy forever. Me too. Jack and I have a question for him. No kidding, thought Jack. Jack and Annie hurried through the exit, leaving Aztec Stadium and heading onto the parking lot. Over there, they're getting on a bus, said Roberto. Not far away, fans and media were swarming around the bus. Photographers were snapping pictures, one after another. Flashbulbs were blazing. TV reporters were shouting questions at the team. Supporters were cheering and waving flags. Hurry, said Jack, as they ran faster, but all they could do to get to the bus as it pulled away from the car. Oh, sorry. The police pushed fans back onto the path so it could leave. Goodbye, said Annie. Goodbye, Pelé, Roberto yelled. Jack and Annie watched the bus move out of the giant parking lot of Aztec Stadium. Well, there goes our chance to accomplish our mission, Jack thought dismayedly. There's no reason to journey to Camelot. Now, it'll be the first time we've ever failed. Don't worry, he said, as if Annie had read his mind. I bet the team's headed to the city. Let's go back there and look for him. Okay, I guess that might work, said Jack, trying not to give up hope. I heard on the radio they were going to have a banquet in Mexico City tonight. Cool. Someone's bound to know where the banquet is. Maybe we can use our magic mist to get into the party. What? Like make a wish to be the greatest party crashers in the world? Said Jack. Annie laughed. Whatever it takes, he said, and he turned to Roberto and asked Roberto, can you help us get back into the city? Of course, I owe you everything, he said. Not really. Everyone deserves a good birthday. Thank you, Jack. Come with me. Jack and Annie followed Roberto away from the giant concrete building through the crowded parking lot towards the tram line. Whoa! Thousands of people were waiting to board the trams. We'll have to wait for hours to get one, said Roberto. Is there another station nearby? Yes, but it will be just as crowded, Roberto answered. What do you think you should do? I have an idea. My great aunt lives in a neighborhood north of here. Near her house, there's a bus stop. Want to give it a try? Sure. We don't have another choice. Jack and Annie followed Roberto away from the tram station. The clouds had moved back in. Soft rain fell as they walked along the road, crowded with cars leaving the stadiums, horns blaring, drivers shouting at each other. This way, Roberto said as he led Jack and Annie away from the busy road to the rundown neighborhood. They passed St. Anthony's Church, a junk store, a laundromat, and a beauty shop. Here's the picture on the next set of page. Then Roberto led them down a dirt patch between two rows of stucco houses. In the light rain, families sat on the front porches. Several were listening to portable radios. The announcer was repeating the news about the World Cup. At the end of the street was a vacant lot filled with kids. When Jack and Annie and Roberto drew closer, they saw about 20 boys and girls, all of all ages, running around barefoot, covered with mud. The kids were playing soccer. The goal lines had been marked off with tattered nets. Grown-ups on the sideline were acting as referee. He blew his whistle and yelled, halftime, and the kids stopped running. Several players walked away from the field, and others gathered in small groups. Hey, Roberto, the older boy waved. Hey, Miguel, Roberto waved back. What are you doing? Shouted Miguel. I'm taking my friends back to the city. We're going to catch the bus, Roberto answered. Hey, Roberto, said another kid. Hey, Diego, did you hear Brazil won? Said Diego. Yeah. Roberto pumped his air in the fist. Pelé the Great. Then he turned to Jack and Annie. I played ball with these kids once when I was visiting my aunt. If they come over, please do not tell them we saw the World Cup final. It would make them sad they could not afford to go. Okay, we won't, said Annie. Jack nodded. He again was impressed by Roberto's kindness. The boy seemed to care about everyone's feelings. Roberto, can your friends play soccer? Miguel yelled. Our team lost some players for the second half. Before Roberto could answer, another boy jumped in. No, Miguel, not Roberto. That remember that time he played? He was the worst player ever. Yeah, Miguel, remember, said the taller girl. He made us lose big time. I didn't ask Roberto to play, Carla, Miguel said. I asked if his two friends could play. We lost our three forwards, but we can play with two. Jack glanced at Roberto, and the boy's smile was gone, and he stared at the ground. No way, Jack said to Annie, gritting her teeth. Not in a million years, right? Not if we didn't have even if we didn't have a mission, and we're the best players in the world. Come on, Roberto, let's get out of here. Wait a minute, said Annie. He turned back to Miguel. She turned back to the kids and yelled, "Yes, Miguel, we can play. Are you crazy? We'll play on your terms," she said, "but only if you let Roberto play too. All three of us want to be forwards." Roberto shook his head. "Not me. They don't want me." "I'm not great either," said Jack. "Annie, what's wrong with you?" "What's wrong with me? Nothing," Annie responded and pulled Jack's backpack and took out a bottle of mist. "In fact, everything's about to be great for all three of us. Wonder what she's going to do." Chapter 8, The Game of a Lifetime. "Seriously?" said Jack. "Yes. What about our mission?" "Quit meeting the players," said Jack. "Right now, this seems more important, don't you think?" said Annie. Jack looked at Roberto's sad face. He thought about the boy's kindness and his happy excitement at the stadium. Yeah, it does," he said. He turned to yell at Miguel. "We'll play, all of us or none of us." Um, okay, Miguel said reluctantly. Roberto shook his head. "No, Jack, no." Diego's players laughed. "You'll lose now for sure, Miguel," one yelled. "Big time." "Give us a minute," said Jack to the soccer players. He huddled Annie and Roberto. "Jack, they're right. I'm not a good player," said Roberto. "Me either, but together we'll make a beautiful team, I promise. Listen, Roberto, we'll use the magic from Merlin's magician in Camelot to make a wish." "To play like Pelé," Jack finished. "Magic? Yes." The mist gathered at first light in the new moon of the Isle of Avalon. Roberto shrugged. "Okay." "Are you guys playing or not?" Miguel shouted. "We're playing," he yelled over his shoulder. He pulled the cork from his bottle and breathed in Marlin's magic mist and smelled oranges and cinnamon and cedar. "I wish I could play like Pelé," he whispered. Jack gave the tiny bottle to Anna, and she breathed in the mist and said, "I wish I could play like Pelé." Then he gave the bottle to Roberto, and he breathed in the magic mist and exclaimed with great enthusiasm, "I wish I could play like Pelé." "Come on," Miguel shouted to the soccer field. "We're coming. 1 second." He put Merlin's mist away and glanced at his watch. "It's 3:15 now. We have 1 hour of magic. At 4:15, the magic ends. Let's go." Jack confidently led Annie and Roberta towards the soccer field. They got to the edge of the field and Jack stopped. "Off with the shoes," he cheered. The three of them slipped off their socks and shoes like the other kids. He left his backpack next to his shoes. Then he clapped his hand. "Okay, let's play ball." As Jack and Annie and Roberta walked onto the field, mud oozed between their toes. The rain had stopped but the ground was soaked. They took their forward positions on Miguel's team. "We're ahead by 2 goals. Don't blow it, okay?" Jack smiled and nodded. Buzzing with excitement, he was eager to play. The referee placed the soccer ball in the center of the muddy field, and the kicker and the other teammate of Diego's team stood near the ball. On the other side of the center line, opposite the field, glared at the three forwards, but Jack wasn't worried. He grinned at them, eager to start the game. The referee on the dusty sideline blew the whistle, and the second half began. The kicker on Diego's 10 tapped the ball to her teammates, who passed it to Diego, and Diego and some of the other teammates knocked the ball around. Jack noticed the way they were really good soccer players. Then suddenly, Jack Annie slipped in and stole the ball from them. She whacked it with her instep, passing it to Jack, who slid it to Roberto. Roberto began moving the ball down the field. As Diego's defenders moved in, Roberto's changed pace from fast to slow, from slow to fast. The ball seemed to be glued to his feet until he fired the shot and drove it like a missile into the net. "Score!" shouted the referee. "Goal!" Jack and Annie and Roberto shouted, pumping their ears in the fist. The other players gasped in amazement. "Who are you guys?" Carla shouted. The goalie kicked the ball back into play. Carla passed it to the girl, who passed it to the boy, and like lightning, Jack moved in and shot the ball into the air to Roberto. He used his thigh to pop the ball to Annie. Annie stopped the ball with her foot, dribbled it past 2 defenders down the field, and then passed it to Jack. Jack moved the ball backwards, forwards, sideways, taps of his feet. He had never had so much fun in his life. He felt as if his feet could do anything. He saw Roberto across the field, the ball to him, passing it over the heads of the defenders. Roberto gave the ball a leaping header, sending it to Annie. Annie tapped the ball on the ground, then ran with it, keeping it close. She faked to move one way, then another, then kicked the ball backwards to Roberto, and Roberto delivered another perfect shot to the net. "Score! Goal!" Jack and Annie and Roberto shouted, pumping their fists in the air. The goalie kicked the ball back into play. The opposing side started moving the ball down the money field. Jack moved faster. He intercepted it, passed it to Annie. Annie sent the ball back to Roberto, who scooped his foot under the ball and popped it over to a group of players right next to Jack. Jack out jumped two defenders and hit the ball with his chest, sending it downfield. Roberto sped after the ball, stole it from two players, and gave it a swift kick right into the net. Goal! Shouted Annie Roberto and shouted, pumping their fists in the air. Goal! Echoed the kids on Miguel's team and Diego's team. All these players seemed to be enjoying the work of the beautiful team of Jack, Annie, and Roberto. As the game went on, everyone playing really well, but Diego's players were no match for Annie, Jack, and Roberto. The three of them were like a goal scoring machine. Hearing shouting and cheering from the soccer game, people left their porches and yards and hurried to see the match. Spectators watched Jack and Annie and Roberto move like dancers, making low free kicks, long range kicks, and leaping headers. They watched them hit the ball with their right and left feet, their foreheads, their chest, their stomach, their thighs. They watched them dribble the ball down the field, tapping it with both feet, send knuckleballs zigzagging across the dirt into the net. In the final seconds of the game, everyone Jack watched Jack execute a perfect bicycle kick like an aerobat acrobat. He threw his legs up in the air and kicked the ball overhead to Annie, who sent it to Roberto, who shot past the goalie into the net. Score! All the spectators and all the players, even the referee, pumped their fists and screamed, Goal! See Jack making his bicycle kick? The referee blew the final whistle. Game over, he shouted. There was a huge roar from the spectators. What's the score? Someone crowd. Who cares? All the players on both teams had big smiles on their wet, dirty faces, and they were slapping each other on the back. Miguel and Diego picked up Roberto and carried him off on their shoulders. The other players gathered around Jack and Annie, asking for their autographs. A teenager took pictures of them with her instant camera. An old man shook their hands. You three are a beautiful team, he said in the middle of the celebration. Jack shouted to Annie, What time is it? 5 minutes to 4, he said. We better remember Cody Island and the thieves, said Jack. Said Annie. Oh, yeah, definitely. On their last 2 minutes, they found themselves in big trouble when the magic hour of greatness had ended. Jack and Annie turned to Roberto, who was holding a toddler posing for the camera. After the picture was taken, he leaned close and said, We have to leave fast before the magic wears off and we turn into our regular selves. Okay, said Roberto. Let's go to the city, but I warn you, they will follow us. Well, then let's go while we're great athletes and runners. The three of them turned to the crowd. Bye. Everyone shouted, No, wait, stay. Sorry, we have to go, said Annie. Thank you so much for letting us play. Jack grabbed his backpack. All three grabbed their shoes and socks. Run, said Roberto, and they took off running away from the soccer field. The kids from both teams ran after them, shouting, Stop, come back, join our team. But the beautiful team kept running, using their magic skills. They jumped barefoot over crumbling stone, leapfrogged over rows of garbage can. Wait, don't leave us, the soccer kids kept chasing. This way, Roberto led Jack and Annie down an alley out of the dirt road. Three of them ran between rows of cedar block buildings. They zipped around the maze of sheets and towels hanging on the clothesline. They jumped over potholes and smelly garbage. As they kept running and leaping, Jack, as they were flying, he felt agile and light footed. Then suddenly he felt heavy, clumsy, and out of breath. He slowed down and came to a stop. Annie and Roberto did the same. Covered with mud, the three of them collapsed to the ground. I can't move anymore, said Jack. Me either. I'm dead, said Roberto. Jack looked at his watch. 17 minutes after 4, he said breathlessly, Our magic hour is over. And we will stop there. That will bring us to chapter 9, and we will pick up on with chapter 9 and finish our book on Monday.
Okie dokie.
All right, Miss Carissa. I hope I will see you